especially when we get into this. Like, I don't even understand what's going to happen here. We're going to talk about Biden to sign crypto order as firms face sanctions pressure. And we've talked about sanctions before and whether or not sanctions should be within cryptocurrency. And at the end of the day, if we're following the fundamentals of Bitcoin, which is the one that we really care about as far as from a principled standpoint, and moving that and influencing the rest of the crypto market to follow suit, what we do know is that you are supposed to value that financial autonomy, which is essentially the freedom to from, governments, the freedom from banks, and so on, so that you can transact peer-to-peer at an individual level. And the problem with sanctions is that what they really aim to do, at face value, what the governments want to tell you they do is essentially impact other governments in a negative economic manner so that they will basically behave properly, right? Case in point would be imposing sanctions on the Russians to essentially influence them to pull out of Ukraine. That's the idea. That's what sanctions are supposed to do. Unfortunately, what they end up doing in a lot of cases, right, is impact the individuals of countries regardless of who they agree with and who they don't agree with, and so on. And the problem is you can't police individuals like that. It doesn't work. So you end up hurting a bunch of people with sanctions and so on. And cryptocurrency does kind of offer that sort of light at the end of the tunnel for individuals like me being able to transact with someone maybe in Russia, regardless of what is going on between our governments and how they're fighting each other, right? Or a Ukrainian transacting with a Russian for whatever needs they may have to fulfill, right? Food, water, etc. Because maybe they don't agree with their governments, right? But they still need to take care of their families. This is kind of an interesting play that you can utilize on an individual level, or should be able to utilize on an individual level without the influence of a government or a bank. Unfortunately, of course, as we've seen, voluntarily, we already have, especially within the Ethereum mining space, or the Ethereum space period, is basically cryptocurrency firms going ahead and participating within the sanctions voluntarily. We have Flexpool, who has stopped serving Russia. We have Ethermine, who has stopped serving Russia, along with other countries as well, like Venezuela and so on. We have OpenSea shutting this off, and we have the back-end processing, payment processing portion of MetaMask participating in this as well. Like I said, the interesting part here that you should keep in mind is voluntary versus involuntary, and we'll kind of talk about that here. A lot of what is being voluntarily done within the crypto space is specifically being done within Ethereum. And this poses a significant risk to the validity of Ethereum, but we've already talked about this. We've seen this coming for a long time, right? Oh, they get hacked. Code is law. Now code is not law. You know what I mean? Oh, we think, the price isn't doing as well. Let's just start burning tokens. Let's change the consensus mechanism. Let's change the monetary policy. Let's do whatever we want. And at this point, obviously, they are moving in that direction. Now, clearly, I'm not saying the pools are working with the devs, but there's this influence within that Ethereum space. There's basically a way of thinking that is old world, that is not decentralized, that moves towards centralization. And so from that perspective, Ethereum, in my opinion, goes against the fundamentals of cryptocurrency. And it's very disappointing because I really like GPU mining, and that was really kind of where it started, was with Ethereum. So this gets very difficult to start navigating. But Biden to sign crypto order as firms face sanctions pressure. Government-wide plan poised to be announced this week. National security regulation to be focused on the executive order. President Joe Biden is set to sign an executive order this week that will outline the U.S. government's strategy for cryptocurrencies, according to people familiar with the administration's plan. The order will direct federal agencies to examine potential regulatory changes, as well as the national security and economic impact of digital assets, said the people who asked not to be named discussing the deliberations. The White House's approach to crypto has attracted fresh attention in recent weeks after U.S. and its allies levied sanctions on Russia, prompting concerns that organizations and individuals could use crypto to evade the restrictions. The White House declined to comment. And they can. I mean, that is a fact. You can use cryptocurrency to get around sanctions, at least some cryptocurrencies, the ones that adhere to the fundamentals. That's case in point. We already understand that. The question would be, should the federal government interfere with that, or should they not? And then we have to decide on, well, why are we even worried about cryptocurrency in the first place? Are we worried about cryptocurrency to make money and just treat it as a tech stock? Okay, go buy Ethereum. Or are we worried about basically changing the way money functions, and as a society, we interact with it? Because the point from the fundamental perspective is to completely change the way that we interact with money, and basically pulling that ability out of the hands of the governments and the banks. The Biden administration is under pressure to play more of a coordinating role in Washington's approach to the asset class, as industry executives bemoan what they say is a lack of clarity on rules. The executive order, which has been in the works since last year, will require federal agencies across the government to report later this year what they're doing regarding digital tokens. Bloomberg News has reported the plan is expected to begin carving out roles for agencies across the government, from the State Department to the Commerce Department. Here's where we're about to get into the nitty gritty. And I want you to look at this. I want you to understand the perspective I'm looking at this specific portion from. What we are looking at and what will happen, I think, just no matter what, is you are going to see a fight between centralization and decentralization. And all of the countries will want to essentially participate. And I should say this, all of the economically well-off countries, first world countries, will want to push centralization over decentralization. This goes across not only cryptocurrency, but across media as well, as we've seen. There is a huge play to control not only the money, but the narrative, but everything outside of that. There is a consolidation of farmland being driven, where basically we have 60% owned by the same person. We could get into that. We have basically a huge campaign for targeting essentially misinformation and disinformation along the lines of whatever ideological basis you are on, right? You hear the right say it, you hear the left say it. What happens when you start trying to label stuff like that too is that you end up at the end of the day having an excuse to say, well, we're going to regulate it, right? We're going to regulate the press, which I want you to remember the First Amendment and say you can't do that. Okay? At least in the United States, we're not supposed to. Other countries, they can potentially do that. But these are the battles that are going to be taking place. In case in point, the White House's directive is also expected to address the possibility of a U.S.-issued central bank digital currency. Do not get cryptocurrency confused with CBDCs. Do not get them confused. This is the other problem. Do not get Bitcoin and Ethereum confused. All right? This is very important to understand. A CBDC is extremely dangerous. It is the opposite direction of cryptocurrency. Is the opposite direction of where it should go. Why is that? Well, at CBDC, as said, central is in the very first word. They're telling us what they're doing. Okay. We heard not that long ago in the talks in the UK about central bank digital currencies, they specifically said the great thing about it is that it's programmable and we can determine either at the workplace level or the government level what you are allowed to buy and not allowed to buy based on your income level, based on your participation within society, and so on. This is the clear goal of central bank digital currencies. So it's coming to the US too. We got to fight tooth and nail for against centralization, for decentralization, and it's going to play out within the cryptocurrency market. That is what it's going. That is where the battleground is being set right now. How are they setting that? What's the spark to ignite this battle? It's sanctions. Okay? So regardless of your opinion on the specifically the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, that's a moot point, because what's really happening here is utilizing sanctions to ignite a battle between centralization and decentralization within cryptocurrency. That's where the fight's going to be, okay? Though it'll likely hold off on taking a firm position because the Federal Reserve is still studying the issue. The central bank, in a paper released in January, said a US CBDC could help preserve the dollar's dominance as other countries like China embrace the technology. Meanwhile, the crypto industry is facing intense scrutiny from lawmakers, including Senator Elizabeth Warren and Senate Banking Committee Chairman Sherrod Brown. Yeah, they don't like other people having the option to not be affected by their decision to print money. See, because this is how it happens. They print a ton of money and then they get to decide who it goes to. And who does it always go to? The top 1%. That's who it always goes to. So they aren't as affected by the inflation as the regular Joe trying to go and buy some damn gas. Over concerns the digital asset can be used to bypass sanctions. However, some analysts and officials have questioned how effective a workaround crypto could be given the limited size of the market. Him Dawes, acting director of Treasury's Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, addressed the issue on Monday. Quote, although we have not seen widespread evasion of our sanctions using methods such as cryptocurrency, prompt reporting of suspicious activity contributes to our national security and our efforts to support Ukraine and its people, he said in a news release. And this is where the reporting happens. This is where they get into the tattletale thing, right? Oh, do you know somebody that's participating in cryptocurrency? Why don't you just tell us who they are? Why don't you just tell us who they are? We'll go get them. We'll take care of this. Don't worry. We'll protect you. It's a disaster, guys. It's a disaster. Let's get into mining profitability for the week. We'll kind of wrap this back around. Just in closing on that, pay close attention, because what we're doing is we're setting up a battleground between centralization and decentralization. And if you're really in cryptocurrency for the fundamentals, for the principles that were set early on, then you need to be paying attention to this. And we need to be voting in the people that are going to fight for decentralization, for cryptocurrencies as they sit, that are going to fight against central bank digital currencies. These are the types of people that we need to get voted in. And for me personally, that I don't care what side of the political aisle they're on. I'm going in and I'm looking at what their policy surrounding Bitcoin is, right? That's what we're at. In Texas, Greg Abbott's pretty bullish on it. I think there was Harrison was a little bit better when we discussed that before. They're both Republican, of course. Beto's not for it. So, you can tell how I voted. I was going on that line. There's other things I disagree with, but from the perspective of what is more important to me as an individual, cryptocurrency and adhering to the fundamentals is more important to me than everything else at this point. Clearly, because this is what I do, right? So that's the way I'm going to vote along those lines. Okay. Then, we get up into the federal government level. There's not a lot of people that at the federal government level right now that support decentralization. There's very few. I know we talked about Ted Cruz, and I've never been a fan of Ted Cruz, but he's one that has been vocal about cryptocurrency in general, and positive about it. So just keep that in mind. I hope you enjoyed this clip from the Crypto Mining Morning Show every Monday through Friday, 7:45 a.m. Pacific and 10:45 a.m. Eastern Time. You can check out more clips here, or if you're interested in checking out the entire live show, you can check that out down here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next Tuesday.